Hey guys, welcome to the podcast this week. This week we're doing something a little bit unique and a bit different, and something we're actually going to be doing more of in our private group. Look, the private group's free. If you just join up to the www.theoffgridtribe.com, I think it is. If you go in there and join the podcast link, in there you can interact. There's a lot of live streams and things like that we're going to be doing with more conversations with myself and Racquel and more people from our team, basically. And the reason we also want to do that is to share the experience from a business point of view of what we do and everything we do. We've got, I just shortlisted our sustainable businesses this morning. We've got like 4 different businesses in the sustainable side of life that we deal with. So we're going to do more of these podcasts where it's more, rather than a guest coming on telling us their experience, we're going to share from an insider point of view what we deal with customers every single day and projects and stuff like that. So, Racquel, do you want to tell basically everyone like what your role is in the business and what you do here at, our 4 different businesses?
Yep. So I do work across all 4 ventures. And although I don't have an official title, I'm pretty much the project manager or operations manager, or as we like to joke, I'm the mic manager. So I make sure that each of the businesses are working in sync with each other, but also that they're getting their business goals achieved. So it's pretty much what I do. I just wrangle the back end of everything. So I'm not normally the face of anything, which is normally my preference, but I wrangle the back end of things and make sure that everyone's, on task and on time and, pull all the data out and do all those kind of things that need to be done at the back so that Mike can just go off and do what he does best. So
talk to people.
and know all about, solar and off-grid stuff and educate people on that, which is what you do best. So, and I just make sure that you stay on the track so that the business keeps thriving and growing and that we can make a bit of a difference.
That's it. So, no, awesome. So, so I'll just give everyone a quick breakdown of so we do have more businesses than 4, but within the sustainable renewable energy industry, there's 4 that we have. I'll basically give you a quick rundown. So we have the off-grid shop. The off-grid shop's more about we design solar systems for people, renewable energy systems, and help people build power stations for rural, remote off-grid systems. A bit of that there, we do hybrid battery-based systems. So if someone's connected to the grid, we do a lot of consulting and stuff around that. So that's sort of around batteries, basically. The off-grid shop's more about batteries and solar, basically, is what that business is about. Then we also have OG Software Solutions, which is ogss.com.au, and we'll put all these links and stuff in the description below. This is a business where we do peer-to-peer energy trading. So what we do there with the peer-to-peer energy trading, we change people's retailers over to a company called getlocalvolts.com. So if you switch your energy company over, then what we do, we go on your behalf and we find cheap renewable energy from other people on the network, and we're a matchmaker. So we've got one customer that's using a ton of energy of an afternoon at 4 o'clock. We've got a customer that sends a load of solar back to the grid in the afternoon. We pay them a little bit more than what they'd get paid from the traditional retailer. And then we save our customers energy and prices on energy with that there. So it's a lot of matchmaking from residential customers who have a ton of solar and they're never home to use it, to share it onto other businesses that we can buy it of a day. So that's one of our businesses there. We manage that. There's a whole heap of other services we offer within that. So that's energy savings. So if you're connected to the grid in Australia, we can help service you save money on energy. Or if you've got a solar system, we can help sell your energy to someone else to get more return on your investment. At the moment, we just can't help you if you're in Victoria, Northern Territory, or Western Australia. Any other states, we can help you with that there. And I'll do the permaculture villages. So then we'll get onto the off-grid tribe, because we're more about here today talking about. We have permaculture villages, which is a consulting business where at the moment we have a project in Dominican Republic. Yeah. So in the Dominican Republic, we are helping someone purchase a block of land. So we're involved in contracts, picking the right bit of land, get a permaculture design done. What housing should be used, finding, at the moment this week, we're talking to lawyers about this Slim Days. The Dominican Republic's very, we'll call it the Wild Wild West. a lot of the land there's no title on it. So you have to go to court to prove that you own the land before you can sell it. So there's a lot of fun stuff like that. But the whole intention, I suppose, with permaculture villages is we're helping people build communities, and we work the whole way through the project from day one, from finding the bit of land to the end point of turning the lights on, and take our experience of working with off-grid customers from, in Australia, I suppose. I've been in a unique situation doing off-grid power stations. Most people contact me and say, hey, Mike, I want to go off-grid. I'm looking at this block of land. It's got no power. What's it going to cost to power it? So we're involved from day one, that we can help them assess that situation with the cost and stuff of power. And then we have the off-grid tribe, which is, so this is our community. And our intention with the off-grid tribe is we have courses on that we sell. Probably our number one selling course at the moment is our Victron Energy course. There's a lot of people in the US where it's a whole DIY, install your own Victron system. In the States, it's a huge, big market, the DIY industry. It's a course you can go on and buy, and it'll actually teach you how to program, do all the settings, and set all your courses up. So there's a whole heap of courses there that you can buy. Off-grid technology course. The job in the Dominican Republic, that client there is actually doing our, what do we call that course?
The ultimate off-grid course.
It's the ultimate off-grid course, basically. Yeah, so that's what that one's called. But the main part with the podcast and with this is that sharing information, helping people out. So, our YouTube business is probably another thing as well with that there. But we really want to share education and knowledge and help people understand what they're doing. And with the podcast, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, Google Play, whatever like that, if you haven't gone over to our website, theoffgridtribe.com, and signed up and registered, you're sort of missing out a lot of features there where there's a lot of private live streams that we're going to start doing more of. You can actually interact with the speakers. So if you have a question for the speaker, you can go into that video that's posted there, ask a question, and the speaker will then, get back to you with their answer and things like that. You can ask me questions about that topic. So we really made it this more interactive and more of a community, and it's completely free. So there's no cost or anything like that with the Off-Grid Tribe, and that's basically what it's at. And plus also all our courses are in there. So if you did want to buy one of our courses and go down that path, that is there as well. So, so with the intention today, I suppose that's for the businesses. To miss anything that we do out of that?
No,
you think?
Don't think so.
So, the intention with today is Racquel has her own project that she's working on, and I have these conversations every single day, a couple of times a day with people that want to go off grid and do all this sort of process. So I really want to help take the information, the conversations I have with other people, and to listen to them yourself as someone I listen at home, that you can think about ideas for yourself and maybe help you on that journey of designing your own off-grid property. So today, Racquel's going to ask me some questions that she has about her project and what she wants to do and go off-grid. So Racquel, let's go. So you can ask me the questions.
Okay, so just a bit of background for everybody that's listening. We currently are in suburban out of Sydney. Okay, so this is where we currently are, but we're actually trying to make some life decisions about which country to live in. And I need to say that up front, because some of my questions may be very specific to the fact that we want to go and live off-grid, in particular in Canada, in Alberta. Okay, so somewhere around Edmonton, Alberta. Our other option is Tasmania, but just so that that's in the back of everyone's head, that we're doing. And I should also let you know that I know from listening to Mike, I've learned so much, but some of the questions that I'm asking are the questions you ask right at the beginning, and that's where we are. We know what we want to do, we know where we want to be, but a lot of the information around off-grid living means that you're going out into the middle of nowhere. You end up in Woodville, and that is not our lifestyle. That is not what we want to do. We want to live a sustainable life, meaning that we're more than happy to still be connected to the grid if needed, but we want to be able to be totally self-sufficient in terms of energy and stuff off grid. And we don't want to live out in the middle of nowhere. We want to live very close. We want to be able to go and get our coffees once a week or something, and we want to be able to go to the theatre, and we want to do those kind of things. But when we've sort of been talking about this, and it's something we'd like to do in the next couple of years, so we're getting all of our information, and this is where these conversations with Mike are always really good. There's a couple of questions that seem I don't know. In one hand, they seem really silly when I work with you all the time, but I'm sure other people have them, because these are the questions I have and that I've had at the beginning. So let's just start with the questions. One of the big factors that we aren't sure about on whether there's, let's call them ideal locations for having this kind of off-grid sustainable lifestyle. And I know it sounds weird because we're talking about Canada in somewhere that's really freezing cold, and that just last week had minus 40 degrees for 3 days in a row, right? But what are those, basically, what are the main considerations when you're talking about location? No matter where you are in the world, there's got to be some similar main considerations when you're talking about location.
Yeah. So, look, I think it's a hard thing because it's unique to so many different people. And, we're the same at the moment of, we live in Lismore, we get hammered by the Lismore floods. We don't want to be here. And it's like, where do we want to be? So I think a lot of that comes down to personally of what you want in your life, with some considerations. And the thing, like, we'll just use that Tasmania and the Canada difference. Like, for me, straight away, I would go Canada. Not the fact that my best mate's moving over there. So, we'll just keep that out of there. So I would probably more think about Canada, because in Tasmania is a real challenge because you only get 2.5 hours of usable power in the middle of winter. So,
Okay.
if you're living from renewable energy, so as an example in Tasmania, if I was going to go to buy a property in Tasmania and want to be self-sufficient with energy, because that's what a lot of people do, and you can do this anywhere. And if you think, okay, well, the real challenge with Tasmania is that sun hours, I would go, okay, can I get a property that has waterfall on it so I can use hydro and get power from that, which is huge in Canada compared to Australia. And there's a lot of hydro in Tasmania, so that also does help tick those boxes. And the other thing as well, a lot of people don't like running generators. And I was actually talking about a project yesterday with one of our larger clients, and they put lots of renewable energy systems over the year, and I just say a generator would be so much easier if they just brought a diesel generator. And one of the things we talked about yesterday with the diesel generator is running it from biofuels. So where they're in the south of Sydney, they're a couple of hours down south of you. And we talked about, is there a little local fish and chip shop there we can get the oil from, and, take that oil that's a waste product from a local store, and then we can use it as biodiesel. And, that's going to be a lot better because they're in a similar situation. They live in a valley. So living in that valley, very short sun windows in the middle of winter. So solar is pretty much out the door.
So the sun hour, if you're looking at solar, the sun hours is incredibly important. So,
exactly.
So I think of Canada, and obviously we've been in 2 places in Canada. We've been in Alberta, and then we've been in Halifax, which is on the east coast. Halifax is during winter, it's overcast all the time. It rains a lot. It's that kind of weather. Whereas in the areas in Alberta that we're looking at, even in the middle of winter, they have, yes, it's shortened hours of sunlight, obviously. So, but you get good sunlight from, 8 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, even in the middle of winter. And they actually have, I think it's something like 340 days of sun per year. So that's a good thing, is what you're saying, to have more sunlight. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're going to be living you think I would just want to live from solar and be that renewable energy. I would look for more sunlight. But the other defense in Tasmania. So I'm not sort of those people who get rid of the grid. It's a bad thing. I really had my mind changed back in 2016 about the grid, the network. And Tasmania, I don't know if people know it or not, but Tasmania is like 99.9% renewable energy.
Yeah.
So, so even if you're not buying energy, you don't have your own solar system, Tasmania is run by renewable energy. And Canada's pretty much similar as well, because a lot of hydro over there. So in Canada, people actually don't say what my electricity bill, people say my hydro bill. If you talk to most Canadians, ask about electricity bills, they're like, my hydro bill. So, so there is my sort of thing with the grid. If it's available on a property that's there, use it. And sometimes it might be right down the front, and where you want to put your house and build up the top of the hill, it's so far away. It's cheaper to put a off-grid renewable energy system up the top than use the mains at the front. So there's so many different things to consider when you're buying a property. And I suppose the thing that I would say is be flexible of working with that microclimate of where you want to be. So.
Okay. The next one that and this is one that we're actually trying to balance out again, the struggle of two options, is on one hand, we've got the option to just build a passive, energy house. Okay.
Yep.
And I know that you've interviewed a number of people, Ashley Horn and Kirsty Wolf here on the podcast, and I've listened to them, and they build in hempcrete and different things. And they talk about the fact that really they don't have just the way their house is built decreases their energy consumption. So we're looking at, do we go and build a house that's designed for the environment that we live in, or what are the pros and cons of just buying a house and then converting it, that if it's not already, obviously you might get the opportunity to buy someone else's totally done house that's all energy efficient and got solar and everything, but in the event you can't, which is more than likely the case, what's the sort of the pros and cons of going either way, or even down to, because on one hand it sounds really expensive to build that passive house compared to just buying a house, but then I start thinking about things like in any house renovation, not just to do the solar thing, in any house renovation there's so many costs you don't think about. You open the wall and suddenly you realize you've got something living in the wall, that kind of a thing. So so just the pros and cons in terms of for actual energy consumption and being more passive, but also the pros and cons for pricing, like when it comes down to money.
Yep. Yeah, look, I've retrofitted 3 houses now my own personally and made them self-sufficient, taking them off grid. And I think what we see in Australia, what's really easy, and it's, I suppose, why we're different between here and Canada, solar's really cheap in Australia, and our houses are really badly designed. This is the way our energy efficiency rating works for houses. Like, builders can manipulate that data so easy, just on a spreadsheet. It's not. That's why a passive house, when you're buying a passive house that's been certified, so it's a bit of paper that says this house is energy efficient, certified, and they would have spent about $10,000 who only has built a passive house actually getting the certification done, like paying the certifier, because that certifier works through the whole building process. That's the benefit of buying a passive house. It's, tick boxes, where with a traditional developed house in Australia, a brand new one, the builders can manipulate things. And in saying that, we have 2 off-grid properties right now that I'm really monitoring, and they're both really energy efficient. They're just traditional builder, tick boxes. There's a few little things changed, and they worked well. So, but retrofitting, it's really hard. Like this house we live in here, it was built in the 50s. Amazing, good, really red hardwood. There's termites everywhere on the outside of this house. We live in a dry rainforest, and literally there's termites that live under the house, and not one has ever been inside the house. Because it's really good old red hardwood. So we didn't want to knock that down, throw it in the bin, and finding builders to try and work with it and reuse it. And I actually have a customer in Tasmania he became a customer because he was a builder I met. And I said, have all these projects in Sydney when we're doing a Sydney house, but no one wants to work with reclaimed or reused materials. He was like, well, he was a permie, he's a handyman that loved working with secondhand stuff. And it was great, it was finding that builder to try and work with it. So, the emotional heartstrings for me, my environmental heartstrings got pulled to this place of knocking it down and starting again. But after almost finishing the place and looking at what I spent, I wish I would have knocked it down and started again.
Okay.
So, because there's things we're unhappy with because we work with what we had and then we just don't have. And look, the reality is we're not happy with certain things. And I fix those problems with a ton more solar panels and a ton more battery storage. Instead of spending $5,000 moving a wall around and fixing something, I spent that $5,000 on batteries and extra solar, and that energy efficient problem is technically gone because I just create the energy I needed now to cover up that bad design. So, but within Canada though, on the other scale of that there, because in Australia, most of our stuff is labor, the cost of labor. In Canada, renewable energy is really, really expensive. So if you ask me that question in Canada, I'd say you'd really want a really energy efficient home, but also as well, Canadian houses are built for those cold climates. Australia, it get cold. We feel it because it gets hot and cold, but we're in between. So our houses are like, whatever, the way builders build them. Where in Canada, you know, you'd probably find a 30-year-old house in Canada would be more efficient than a brand new build in Australia from a developer. So yeah, and you might find a house that's amazingly looked after and maintained and tick all those boxes that you want. But yeah, if for me, my next project is I want to start from scratch and do it how I would like to do it. And that's why I want to build a hemp house and get a block of land and just do everything from scratch, because it's something I haven't ticked off my list in life yet. You know, that's for me. Yeah, I've seen a couple of properties. I was like, oh, I could just buy that. And could that get rid of that urge I have to build and do my own thing, you know? So yeah.
My head goes, this is just off my head goes, if I buy someone else's property, even if it's all decked out with solar and everything else, I could potentially be buying someone else's mistakes and problems, especially when it comes to something like the solar system, where I'm not, I mean, you know, I'm trying to educate myself about it, but I'm not going to be you, right?
Yeah.
And so this is the thing, you know, no matter where we go and where we do this, we're going to go, Mike, tell us what we need, put it in, do this, you know, design it for us. And so that's my biggest concern, is that I know I can trust you. I know that you know what you're doing. Whereas what if the person who did it before was somebody that just didn't know what they were doing, and they've done it and it looks all really good on paper, and then the reality is, no, it's not working.
Yeah. The other thing these days, what we're really lucky with, which a lot of people don't take advantage of, is the project we're doing in Kangaroo Valley at the moment. We've got history and data on one property there. So it's just like, if the customers, the person that you're buying that house from, you know, the seller, if their system's been on the internet, you can see all that data and how they've used energy, and a lot more people are doing that these days. So you can actually see the performance history, which, or you could say, well, you know, I want 50 grand off the cost of the house because we don't have the systems to do it. So yeah, negotiating tool.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you some really basic questions, because these are questions that I had no clue about. Okay. No clue. And I ask you often, what does that mean? What does that mean when I come across them at work? But given that I have no clue and my wife has no clue, and I'm thinking anybody that's interested, but, you know, hasn't done a deep, they're not going to understand this either. So the first one is, I know that we talk a lot when you're doing these designs, and when you go to our website, there's this really big sort of form to fill in about different things, so that we can actually start the process and figure things out with our potential customers. And one of the questions is, and I have, you know, had no idea how to work this out. One of the questions is how do I figure out what my actual energy consumption is now, so that when I'm trying to go, when you're trying to design an off-grid system for me, because I'm not going to design it, but how do I figure out what my actual energy consumption is, so that I know what energy I need to produce, which then obviously flows on to decisions that you make about what to put in.
Yep. Yeah. So because you live on the grid, one of the easiest ways to get your energy bill. So grab that, that'll give you the total, and we can work stuff out that. But one of the exercises and I was actually talking to a guy about this morning in Germany, a guy in Berlin. So he might be joining our team to work with us. So he actually listens to the podcast. So we were talking about this. I remember when, you know, I've been in a few issues at the moment with installers, you know, and guys that do the thing. And I thought, how did I really get a knowingness of that? And when I first started, the guy that taught me, his name was Chris. And these days, when you give a guy computer programs and does all the single line diagram, gives it to the electrician, he just reads it and he installs it. In theory, he knows what he's doing. Chris would do the single line diagram, how the system was designed, but he would make me redraw it and do it all up. And he'd say, right, you draw that and then come over here, and we try and match up. And sometimes I spend days trying to draw it up, get my head around it, how it's going to work. But I really understood how that system had to be installed from drawing it. And it's the same thing as what he used to make me do on energy audits when we go to people's houses, was I had to go around and take photos of the back of every appliance on everything and look at the energy usage of it. So you go around your whole house and you look at the, you know, fridges, you can open the door, it's inside the fridge. Your TV, it's on the back. So you go around and take a photo of all those devices in there. And, you know, we can actually make, what we'll do, we've got that spreadsheet. I've actually did a new one this morning. So we'll offer that spreadsheet for free if they go to the Off-Grid Tribe podcast and join. It's in the it's in a paid course at the moment. We'll pull it out and we'll put it in the podcast channel. In this podcast, if you go down and subscribe in there. And so yeah, then what I would do, I'd take all those energy uses and I put them all down in the spreadsheet, and yeah, you basically get how much each appliance would use, and then would work out if you turn everything on all at once, what size inverter that you would want, and then work out how many kilowatt hours you'd need, and then other questions as well is like, well, do you use that appliance of a day or of a night time? Because it's very different. Because if you use it of a day, solar panels are cheap. If you use it from battery as well, we need enough solar to put the energy away later on to charge the batteries, and batteries are expensive. So you're going to spend more on batteries the more you use it per night. So, yeah, so that's going around your house, taking photos, putting it all on that spreadsheet. And maybe that's the next podcast. You could do that. We can talk about that.
I'm just looking around. I'm just looking around the office here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 computers. I think 6 monitors. Not to mention all the rest of the stuff that's in just this one room. Yeah.
So
okay.
What you can actually really do these days, we have such some cool stuff that you can cheat with. I'll put a link in the description below to some of the ones that we use. But there's I actually use these. Use these to turn my kids' TVs off on them. Well, we only have one TV in the house, but the kids watch that TV, so it's their TV. So I have it on timer. So, and the really good thing about the one we use, it monitors the energy. So I have one here from my computer as well, which I plug to a power board, and then all my monitors and everything runs through that and tells how much energy you actually use from this setup. They're all wireless. You put them online and you can record that data. So if you really want to get the nitty gritty about it, you could put on that sort of stuff and monitor it. And I think they're about $60 for 4 devices or something like that.
Okay.
And yeah, like I said, I have mine on a timer, so they turn off at 8 o'clock, so the kids are ready to go to school. It's not me coming in the remote, piss them off, it's the TV god, turn the TV off,
I like that.
So yeah, okay. So
you said something that made me triggered to another question. When I first started doing this, and obviously I live in suburbia, okay? So we see solar panels, and I live in a relatively new estate. So there's a lot of homes around here with solar panels on their roof. And, you often get the guys knocking on the door trying to sell you solar, okay? But you just mentioned an inverter. And what I have learnt from working with you, and I do not understand this yet, and I intend to make sure I do understand this before I decide to go totally off grid myself. But there's so much more to it than the solar panels that go on your roof. And because I just think of all these things, I think, okay, everyone knows what a solar panel is. Sits on the roof, captures the sun. Wonderful. I now know there's multiple types of solar panels. And we won't go into that in this podcast, but I think there's a couple of other words that you've said that can be really important for people to understand. Like there is the solar panel, there is the inverter, there is the batteries. Like there's a whole extra parts to this that people kind of need to know what it is. Because my sort of thing, and I know that in the off-grid shop we sell the kit, so it all comes together. Like that's our thing. But I think it's really important and helpful because when you're talking about, if I didn't know, because I had worked with you, I'd be sitting there going, what is he talking about? Don't I just need to put solar panels on the roof and buy a battery?
Yeah.
Like literally, that's what I'd be thinking.
Totally. Well, that's something we do as well. Like if people want to join our email mailing list at the off-grid shop, we can email out the terminology guide that we use for the off-grid to explain this stuff because it is, it's, I know in the way we do our quotes and designs that I do a personalized video talking through everyone with what each component does. So they really, each big component, so people really understand. But yeah, I see a lot of people over the years that have purchased a solar system, not understood completely what they're getting and not been happy basically because they didn't learn and understand exactly what all that stuff is. And off-grid is very, very different to grid connected because if you get it wrong with grid connected, you just don't save as much money as that you want. But if you get it wrong with off-grid, it's such a more expensive fix and you don't have any power and the lights are out, and that normally adds a bit of emotion to the scenario.
Yeah. So what are the main, what would you like, just the 4 big things that, I mean, obviously solar panels, one, we know what that does. It's the sun. What's the other big things? You said inverter. What's an inverter? Just as a really basic explanation.
So there's really 2 types of inverters, and off-grid, there's the battery inverter. So it takes energy from the batteries and turns it into 240. So battery power is DC, And that inverter, you want it as big that if you turn everything on at once, it's not going to shut down. So they're talking, 3, 5, 10, 15 kVA. 15 kVA is about the biggest inverter you get, and then we start adding them together. But say a 15 kVA inverter, you can turn on about 12,000 watts of load. So you can turn the kettle on, the toaster, the air conditioner, the electric oven, the cooktop. That's 5. We'll call it about that. And then if someone turns a drop saw on, you're probably going to have a blackout.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the battery.
So just let's do this. Let's do this for the. I was going to say let's do solar power for dummies, right? An inverter takes one version of electricity essentially and turns it into the stuff that we can use in our home.
Exactly.
That's exactly what an inverter is. It's going from DC to what is it, AC or whatever it is. Forget the technical terms. If I'm just don't care about the technical terms, it takes the power that's stored in our batteries and makes it usable in our house.
Exactly. So a converter is probably a better description of it, but we call it an inverter,
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So, so that's a battery inverter. And then we have the grid connected inverter. So off grid, we call it PV inverter, AC coupled inverter, grid connected inverter. So the way grid connected inverters are designed, the same thing. They take the DC from your solar panels, direct current, and they convert that into AC. And what happens, I'll feed your house loads first, and then what you're not using, it sends it back to the grid.
Okay. Yep.
So in an off-grid situation, we use those for daytime usages, and it allows us, so, if you've got a 15 kVA off-grid battery inverter, you can put 15 kVA of grid-connected inverters on. So of a day, then you've got 30 kVA of accessible power as long as the sun's shining.
Yep.
So, and then, if you're not using it, we take it and put it into batteries and all that sort of stuff. So, so there's 2 types of inverters that you'll see in an off-grid situation that's usable. So, yeah.
Okay. I thought we only got one other question for this particular podcast, and it's about the cost. Okay. And I'm not talking about the cost to put it in up front, because there are so many factors that change that cost. Okay. But, and obviously, I can you get on fine prices, whatever. That's not my thing. What I'm interested in is what I don't see talked about a lot is what are the ongoing costs of having things? Because I honestly, until I worked with you, didn't realize that solar panels have a lifespan, right?
Yep.
So I didn't realize that there will be a cost to upgrade this or to change that. I didn't realize about the parts that we have to replace, that there's replacement and how long a battery lasts for. And so when you're working out these things just from a layperson's perspective, I kind of thought, oh, you could put it in and it will be done with the occasional, like when you have electricity in your house, right? The system goes in and then occasionally you might have to call an electrician because something blows. But beyond that, you're not really upgrading your home for 20 to 30 years is when we upgrade our electrics in a home, right? Yeah. So I was trying to go, right, I figured solar was exactly the same. You put it in, you don't have to upgrade, but it may not actually be the case. So what are the main parts that you need to replace, or what are the main ongoing costs when you have a solar system and you want to live there for the next 30 years?
Yeah, look, the most common things that die are monitoring devices. That is normally small computers that run hot all day long. So, and some of the manufacturers that we use, some are $300, some are $1,000 that you might have to replace your monitor. And most things come with a 5-year warranty. So after that, your monitoring devices. MPPTs is another one. Look, you think about all this stuff, it's working so hard and so hot all day long. And we all design systems to work flat out, to get the most out of, get the most out of it. So MPPTs is another one that they normally fail, but very rarely. So
do you want to explain for us solar newbies what an MPPT is?
Yep. So the easy way to think about it, MPPT is actually an Australian invention. And it's so it's an automatic gearbox for your solar panels. If you think about that way. So it's a maximum power point tracker. So, your solar panel comes in and it'll take that voltage and the amps and optimize it to make sure your batteries get charged as fast as possible. So an MPPT, what they used to use was a thing called a PWM, which is a pulse width modulator. and all it does is turn things on and off. So, when the battery gets to its full, it turns the panels off. When the battery drops down, it turns the panels back on. Where with the MPPT does, like I said, it's an automatic gearbox. So it, tracks the knee curve, they call it, and make your panels perform more efficient to get your batteries charged faster, and you get about 30% more capacity out of that. So, but yeah, because every single day, all day, we've got high current running through them. And like I said, very, very, very rarely, but they are the most common thing that ever happens. One of the big things a lot of people are is geckos. Geckos, mice. It's another one to kill products when they come in and go inside. Yeah, it's really important, and it's funny because in the early days, it's interesting how laws change things and more things happen. But in the early days, like most of our customers would have a tiny little shack with a veranda. We'd put the inverter and stuff right out where they'd sit every single day, have their coffee out in the morning. That's the stuff they'd see it, they'd touch it, they're always around it.
Yep.
Had very, very few issues with those ones there. The customers over the years we've had issues with, the customers that have built some shed, put it at the back of nowhere, no one ever goes near it. And when you do, there's the snakes to get past and the mice and all the geckos. And then, when you walk into it, what's killed it, something's got inside of it. No one goes near it. So a lot of the inverter manufacturers these days are more and more making them. It's a catch-22 because it's like, I need to make this thing breathe and let the hot air out of it, but I also need to make it that nothing can get inside it.
Yeah.
So it's a balance there. So what a lot of what we do these days, and it does add like $3,000 to the cost of a system, is we put things in a box, steel box, fans on it that. There's another level of barrier to that there, and to protect it, basically stop rodents in it. But if you live around your stuff, so yeah, that's basically. But the other thing as well is diesel generators. What a lot of people don't realize is the cost of a diesel generator and maintenance of that. It's just like a car. The amount of generators over the years that have died, and I've had phone calls. I'm like, well, when was the last time you got it serviced? They're like, why would you service your generator? I'm like, well, it's a motor just like your car. Generators, the fails over the years is people don't fill them up with diesel, don't check the oil in them. It's just another, diesels, the generator would be the most expensive thing to maintain, I suppose, in the cost of a system. And it's more rodents will get in and hurt things. So
how often, like, what is the lifespan on solar panels?
So most panels these days come with a 25-year warranty.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So
okay.
And the hard thing as well, it's a bit like electric cars, this misconception that, after 10 years, they're useless, the batteries are no good. With an electric car, I'll just use this as an example, because solar panels, it's the same concept. After the 25 years, most panels have a 20% degradation. Yeah. So you're going to lose 20% over that 25 years, you're going to lose 20% of what it's going to produce in 25 years. So put more up to start with, is the reality. And batteries is the same in cars. People go, well, I think people understand this more with a car. It's not that after 10 years or the 7-year warranty of the car, it's the batteries are no good. You just don't have the range, and petrol cars are no different, like I've got a VW van transporter thing that when it was sold with like 6 or 7 liters, per 100 Ks of diesel. And, the bloody thing uses 12 or 13, it's a 10-year-old car. So it's just more that the batteries, they just lose efficiency. So, instead of having a 300K range, you might have a 250K range after the warranty period on those products. So most
that's longer than I thought. I thought I had no idea how long a solar panel lasted, but none at all. Like, to me, that's the same as what I said earlier, that if you build a new house in 25 years, you're going to have to upgrade a lot of the electrics in the house. I mean, that's just what you do. So so that's actually on par. So that doesn't, when it comes to doing that. And what about batteries? Because I know batteries are an expensive part of your solar system. And so what's the kind of turnover on a battery? Again, lifespan, an average lifespan.
Yeah. So the truth is, we really don't know right now, because lithium batteries in Australia really become a thing in off-grid for us about 2017. So. We've only been selling lithium batteries for 7 years, basically. Yep. Most of them come with a 10-year warranty, and that's another thing as well, as something to think about and consider. What I've learned, so most companies, when you look into the fine print of their warranty, they offer a 10-year warranty, but the first 5 years, within that 10-year warranty, they'll give you a new battery. What
Mm-hmm.
happens at the 7-year mark? They say, "Oh, I actually had a customer fail, and like literally a month before the warranty period is out, and they gave us like $250 because they did a pro rata warranty because their thing was 2 years, and then 3 years later, the next 3 years was pro rata. So the customer got $250 back. So that's something I'd really think about with batteries, and that's why I love the products like Volta. Volta. And what's another one? SOK is another one. SOK. With those batteries they're designed that, they have a 10-year warranty. I think the SOK's a shorter warranty, but the Volta we'll talk about there is in Australia, it's a 10-year warranty. And within that 10 years, if a cell fails inside the battery, which is normally all it is, it's just most batteries, not the Volta ones, but they're just, think of like little AA cells. That's what they are, a little AA battery. One of those has failed. So you're throwing a whole battery in the bin because one of those has failed. Where with Volta, they've created a product where you just take the top off, unbolt the screws, put a new cell in, replace it, and bang, you're in business, which is ideal. So, mate, so that there, so I'd really, with warranties with batteries, and we just really don't know because most of them are a 10-year warranty. And the other thing with lithium they talk about is life expectancy. And a lot of companies I've asked it is, I said, why do you call it end of life? And they will not support or anything that's a risk of anything that's going to happen or a fire, whatever. They're sort of saying, we don't want to support that battery, move it on. Yeah. They won't add to them, that sort of stuff. So, we just don't really know at the moment is the honest answer. But there are some technologies out there like LTO technology, lithium titanate oxide. They have a 20-year warranty. We'll link that document. It's actually on one of our YouTube videos. There's a study from the University of New South Wales, I think, or maybe Queensland, that they predict that LTO cells have a 60-year life expectancy.
Wow.
But the price of buying an LTO in Australia at the moment is almost 3 times the cost of what a traditional lithium battery is. And the other thing exciting as well is sodium ion is another battery right now, which has longevity. And with just using sodium ion from, if you think, okay, well, every 10 years I need to replace my batteries, sodium ion is going to be so much cheaper, and there's so much more we can recover out of a sodium ion battery than a lithium ion battery. And the one amazing thing about the sodium ion technology is they make it on the same factory as they'd make a lithium ion battery right now. So for the skill and how the manufacturing process is, they don't need to go back these big new factories and do things different. They literally tell the boys, well, today we'll make a lithium ion, maybe Monday, and Tuesday, or girls, whatever, they work on the factory lines. Tuesday, we're making sodium ion batteries. So, and there's a lot more recoverable, and it's a lot more cheaper product and a lot less rare earth materials used to make those batteries. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, that's all I'm going to ask you today, because we could do this for the next 5 hours. I know I have so many questions I've asked you, so many more I could ask, but I think it's we're going to keep doing this, like we said, on the Off-Grid Tribe. So we can do smaller bits that kind of group them all together, because there is so many other questions I could be asking you. Just, very, very specific to my situation, or very specific to just the education of, what is this, what is that? And like you said, we have a lot of these answers already on our YouTube, but it'd be nice to have them in one little spot to go, yeah, okay, this is what if you don't understand any of this, like I really didn't understand any of this. And for some people, it will just sound so much like gibberish. Like, when you start talking kilowatt hours and this, and you're like, okay, whatever. And there will be some people, quite frankly, kind of like me, that just, I don't want to I know what I want, and I want to understand it so I can maintain it, but I don't need to know the in-depth ins and outs of this whole thing. Like, you need to know that because that's your thing. But yeah, I just need to know enough that I'm making smart choices. Once I put my smart choice is going, Mike, design my system, right?
Yeah.
That's my first smart choice. My second smart choice will then be just having enough of an education to go, okay, I can maintain this, and I'm doing this right, and it's not going to be a waste of money, basically, because that's always the biggest thing. I think with education, after you've bought these things, I actually think you should educate before you buy them. But when you've got someone that you trust and you go, I know you'll do right, then it's easy for me to go, yeah, just put it in, and then I can educate myself. How do I use it? Am I doing the right thing? Am I looking after it? Maintaining it, whatever it is I have to do, and not overloading it. So
yeah,
totally.
Yeah, if you get off-grid designs wrong, it's definitely a steep learning curve for the end user. So definitely. So and that's why I suppose we created the Off-Grid Tribe platform and all the videos and the online education platforms and our courses. We're about to do a special on our face-to-face course where you get access to come to a weekend, and our customers come along to this. Customers that have brought systems off us, so you come along for the weekend, and we run a whole weekend of education on this, and I really, get more people to invest in that before they go buy a system off grid, and then a lot of people, I think we're going to do like $1,000 or something, was it, for the course? It's like half price, rather than $2,000, it's going to be $1,000 to come along for a weekend. Like, that is a small investment when you really think about it. And the other thing I with that is like how much it can save you from getting a smaller system, because you're energy efficient, what you can get away with, the needs of that, So I speak to some installers, and they're like, they'll charge people $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 extra if they can to put more battery storage in. It's not that they're charging it for a profit, but they just want to put more and more battery storage in and more panels, so they hear from the customer less and less and less, which is it is actually a really good strategy. I know the customers that we've pushed the boundaries with, because they've got a budget, and we didn't educate them truly properly before. Like, they're the ones who spent a lot of time with over the years trying to educate and get them to really understand how their system works and get the most out of it. And, I've had customers that have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a system and not happy with the performance of it. And I've seen people spend 15 grand, think it's the best thing in the world, And it all just comes down to people's perception and energy usage and how it all works. And so,
because it's a two-sided thing, that there's, maybe you're buying way too many panels, batteries, etc., for what you actually consume. But then there is trying to do it on such a tight budget that you have to then go add later, and that's even more expensive than if you add now.
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of a thing, because you suddenly realize, well, actually, no, especially if you're going from suburbia like this and you're going to go off grid, and you think, oh, well, I won't have all of these things, I'll live a bit differently. And then you get there and you go, no, I miss it. I miss it. I miss all those appliances in my kitchen, type of thing.
Yeah.
I need that.
The other thing, they like look into the right finance, and the way I think about that as well is like, you can actually, if you want to keep all that sort of stuff, you don't have the budget, go get finance, and proper finance. Like, get on a mortgage, get it from a bank, get it from a proper company that does like 7-8%. None of these interest-free crap. Because the interest-free one, it's interest-free because they say to the solar installer, we will finance this, but you have to put $4,000 more cost on it because you're paying us a fee. That's how they do interest-free. So just as an example, what a lot of solar guys do is they use cheaper quality products so they can hide that fee basically in there. But yeah, if you finance it, you're better off paying money. Like, gas is a big thing, that this is where like a lot of people will go, I'll just put gas cooking, gas shower, hot water to save money up front. But that's finance. You end up paying the gas bill over the years. So it's actually cheaper and works out better if you pay a finance company than a gas company over the lifetime of your system. So adding the correct type of finance into a design, getting that. And I'd really recommend just go to your bank, your current bank, get it as a personal loan, or tell them what you're doing and get the financing into buying a solar system on the house. But most banks, like in Australia as an example, Commonwealth Bank do a green loan. Commonwealth Bank do a green loan. If you've got a mortgage with Commonwealth Bank, like for a couple of percent, it's like really, really cheap. You can finance your solar system and batteries and add all that sort of stuff because you're a customer. I think there's a couple of other banks that do it as well. So I'd first of all go to your major bank and see what green loans they do to help you out. So
cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much for answering all my questions.
No, thank you. It's good. So you guys, thank you for listening this week. And like I said, if you haven't already, go over and join the offgridtribe.com and get involved with the conversation. We'd love to see, post your pictures up there, get involved with the community and ask more questions. And it can be more interactive with guests and have those conversations with guests. If you want to talk to one of our guests we've had on before and ask them some questions and go from there. Cool. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found the content educational and inspiring. If you got something out of it and you think you know someone else that would actually also enjoy it, we'd really appreciate if you could share the link with them and encourage them to check out our channel. And don't forget, you can join the Off Grid Tribe podcast for free, where you can actually ask and interact with myself and also our guest speakers. So jump over today to offgridtribe.com, register yourself an account where you can actually have a conversation with myself and one of our guest speakers, and we can continue the conversation there. Together, let's embrace the power of sustainable living.